My name's Lauren Wojcik. I'm on the solutions team with Libris. So, what we basically do is work with libraries across the U.S. and Canada, and we have counterparts in the rest of the world who do a similar job in our other regions. And we are the primary folks who demo our solutions and answer questions about product functionality. So we are not the product managers, but we do work closely with them and kind of run an intermediaries between our customers and them. I am a librarian by background. I was a reference and public service librarian in the health sciences prior to joining the team. So I'm really excited to be with you here today to talk about our linked data plans. First of all, I thought I would just start by talking a little bit about what linked data is. I think probably many of us are becoming more familiar with this, but just so we're kind of all on the same page, the idea behind linked data is that it is structured data for the semantic web. So this is something that computers can read versus humans. Of course, MARC was developed by librarians to organize resources, but if you think about it, it's more easily parsed by folks who have training in that area versus a computer. If we have this kind of structured data that computers can easily process, that facilitates more efficient cataloging, better discovery, and improved interoperability. So why we feel it's so important to develop this functionality is beyond it just being part of where the industry is going, it does make it easier also to collaborate. So free access to community-based sharing of metadata. And so this is kind of what we're talking about when we're talking about linked data in the library context. The questions that are guiding us working on the Ex Libris products at Clarivate, how can we assist in the advancement and adoption of BibFrame? We're in a moment right now where MARC 21 is still a very commonly used standard and it's not going anywhere, but we're getting more and more questions about BibFrame. People are starting to actively catalog in this standard. So what is our role in, contributing to that as a software service provider? Also, how can we make it user-friendly? If you start showing schemas and things like that, it does start to feel pretty technical. And you'll even see if you've looked at the BibFrame outputs for any of your titles in Alma, you may see that it looks very different and maybe not so readable to the human eye. So how do we make the BibFrame standard, and especially the BibFrame editor that's coming soon, make it user-friendly so people actually want to use this standard, learn it, engage with it. Also, how do we manage this hybrid state that I mentioned, MARC and BibFrame side by side? For a while now, we have been able to display the MARC records in Alma, have the system kind of generate a BibFrame so you can kind of switch between them. But folks are actually now wanting to catalog natively in BibFrame, so not converting the MARC, but actually starting from scratch with BibFrame. At the same time, we do still need to be using and supporting MARC. It's going to be around for at least another decade, if not longer. So how do we manage this state of transition here? Of course, as librarians, we are very interested in what does this mean for our patrons. And the work that we do on the back end in Alma, it may not be always apparent to them, but the link data that we're building in the platform ultimately results in a richer discovery experience. So we're going to talk about Primo as well, because it's kind of two sides of the coin there. Also, our product management is thinking about how to support the early adopters, the people who kind of want to push the envelope, while thinking about the majority of our customers and kind of how do we juggle that approach and have new technology rolling out, new support for BibFrame. But if people aren't ready to start cataloging in BibFrame, what about them? And that actually might be the majority of the Alma community right now. I don't know exactly what the numbers are showing from their interviews and talking with people, but we want to be able to be at the forefront while also supporting what the community needs. So let's talk a little bit about what our end users, our patrons, the people that we support are looking for. Of course, they can go and search the library catalog. They can go look at the shelves, see what books appear next to each other. Um, the important thing for them is having consistency in being able to find this information and understanding what, maybe they know the title they're looking for, but what edition, how can we provide the information that they need to help find maybe the right edition of material in the right language, that sort of thing. So let's talk about features that currently exist, things that are already live in Alma. Some of these you may be more familiar with than others. Um, but of course, we have supported for Mark 21 for several years now, linked data enrichment, where we can automatically add URIs to your records. Those are uniform resource identifiers, so they are, I kind of think of them as like similar to authority headings, and we can do that now. Enriching the MARC records with the URIs to link out to more information about a person or a subject. We also support local authorities, and that can include many different types beyond what we support through the community zone, the LC mesh, etc. For BibFrame, we have an integration with Sinopia, and what that has allowed folks to do is to catalog in BibFrame in Sinopia, send the records to Alma, but it is, an integration where you're kind of working across two systems. So we're going to talk about what we're doing to bring that natively into Alma. And we have a work search now. So rather than just doing a title level search or you can do a title holdings item search, but you can also do a work search. So if you're searching specifically for the work and that is a concept in BibFrame, you can find it now in Alma. We have that in the drop-down search. We support person cards and contributor pages. So this is thinking like kind of in for the end user in Primo. We also have an Alma. You can start linking, adding that link data functionality, um, and being able to look at the record. And we're going to see some examples of that. And then, as I mentioned, building that rich discovery experience. So when people go to Primo and access your library information, they can use the autocomplete to find a specific person. Usually it's an author. And there's actually pages now for those authors where they can find other books that were written by that person, other library holdings related to that person. And we're supporting additional vocabularies, which again helps with the finding other relevant resources. So our product management has been talking to institutions, um, people in the Alma community who are already using BibFrame, just to find out about where that stands, what they're using it for. And actually, let me go back there. What we have found is that it's kind of a we're kind of in a learning phase. A lot of folks are cataloging as an exercise, just trying to learn BibFrame, compare the MARC to the BibFrame, that sort of thing. So that I thought was very interesting. Very cool that people are practicing and just trying to learn, like, what is this new standard? And so that's a real, I guess, indication again of why we want to have BibFrame and MARC supported side by side, because it might not make sense just to jump into the BibFrame. You're probably going to want to practice with it first. So a lot of people are just kind of in that learning phase. So folks are cataloging special collections materials with BibFrame. Uh, this BibFrame standard can be especially useful for things that are not as typically cataloged as in Mark, or which Mark can't really represent very well. One of our product managers gave um, the example of like an event that a bunch of different people attended. Or I'm very into figure skating, so I like to think of the Olympics, like a certain year of the Olympics, which athletes were there, which coaches were there, who won the medals, that sort of thing. And if you try to catalog something like an event in a market, it just doesn't really work. So ephemera related to events, things like that, things that require different descriptors, a different way of cataloging, BibFrame can be useful there. Also for local records like dissertations, again, just wanting to be able to catalog in different ways, represent linkages between data in different ways. And then, of course, the works with multiple instances. Uh, that is something that BibFrame does really, really well. You can have a work and you can have multiple instances. So that standard lends itself really well. If people need to do some work like that, they're using BibFrame for it. So what are we doing on the discovery side to expand the patron experience here? Um, Currently, and we'll see an example of this next, you can see a person page. So we have the person search, but we're going to be adding the ability to find organizations and locations, as well as additional language support. So beyond English, more languages there to support. And these are all, you're seeing the screenshots from the Next Discovery experience, just to kind of show what that will look like. So the more entities that we can have available in discovery, the better the opportunities for serendipitous discovery, connecting, starting to build that like chart of person, place, relationships. So let's go to Primo and I'll be able to show you what I'm talking about in case you haven't seen it so far. Let's first go, actually, let's start here at Cal State University Long Beach. I have searched for a title, but I'm going to kind of backtrack here and search for an author. So in the search box, when I type this person's last name, I can see at the bottom some auto-populate or autocomplete of who I might be looking for. And I'm actually looking for Matthew Stover. So if I click on it, we're able to get to his person page with data coming from Wikipedia. If you hover over the question mark icon, you can see where this is coming from, the licensing, etc. And just a short bio of this author. We've got his birth date, his field of work, and then we can scroll down to see titles in the library that were written by him and even people associated with him, which is kind of cool. George Lucas is on there because Matthew Stover wrote a fair number of Star Wars novels. So I like that it picked up the relationship to George Lucas, who is, of course, the creator of Star Wars. So even though this is not, this is kind of presented in a very modular fashion, you could think about visualizing this even as a graph, right? Or having little circles and building the relationships between these people and these books. So very, very cool. If I wanted to find other books written by this person, it's easy to find that. Maybe I want to um, find other people who were associated with George Lucas. So we're trying to build those relational data points. And machines can pick this up too. It's actually kind of optimized for them, but hopefully it helps us humans as well. So if we go back to this title, I want to show you the actual item record as well. Because on the side of the item record, we're going to see the related persons. And in fact, there are two people credited as contributors or editors on this title. So of course, we already saw Matt Stover, but David Brin is also credited. If you look up here under the authors in the metadata, we can see that, and he indeed, his picture is on the right-hand side too, as another related person to this work. So then we could look at his author card, or person card rather, because they're not all authors, and read about him and find more titles that were written by him. He's got this library collects a few more of his things than Matt Stover, so you can see what it looks like when there's a lot of titles here, and then other people associated with him. So that's functionality that exists today. That person card, being able to display that in your records, that exists today. What is going to be coming soon, as I mentioned, is a couple more different types of relationships. So if we come to the NDE, our example of the NDE here, and I start to look for Thoreau, I get that autocomplete and I can select him. And then I see again, the picture where it's coming from, the Wikipedia content, and we can see titles by him, also titles written about him. So now thinking of kind of that meta level, not just what did he write, but what did other people write about him? Or not the autobiographies, that would still be his, but biographies, historical works, that sort of thing. And then some of the people associated with him. And we are going to be able to add, like in the slide here, again, things like maybe the places that he was associated with. And I think that's going to be really cool. We'll even be able to show kind of a map view. So this is really enriching the discovery experience, and hopefully this will be something our users appreciate, especially if they're learning about a new topic, or maybe they're just looking for a quicker way to access some of the things that they already know. If they are familiar with this author, they just want to get a list of their works, they should be able to do that with the associations here. So we saw the quick demo. Let's talk about what's coming with the linked open data editor. So you are hopefully familiar with, or at least know of, the metadata editor for our MARC records, our Dublin core records. What is coming soon is the linked open data editor. This is actually a dedicated form interface in Alma, guided by ontology. We are designing it to hopefully be user-friendly and flexible. Still testing it, but that's the goal here, and to develop a workflow that's best suited for catalogers who want to work with BibFrame. And it will support linked data integrations and lookup services similar to that F3 in the metadata editor today when you want to link it to a subject heading, where you have a lookup service for our BibFrame. Um, uh, I forget the actual name, basically like the associated persons that we can look up. And we'll get a chance to see a preview of this. If you want to learn more about our linked data roadmap, the themes, we do have this documented on our Knowledge Center. So I have two links here, and I will hopefully be able to share these slides as well. These are all searchable, of course, on our Knowledge Center, but we have just a general kind of overview of linked open data, as well as specific by quarter or half of the year different features that we're anticipating rolling out. So you can kind of go to the first link for the theme and learning more about the subject, and then the second link for learning about the specific features and functionality that is being rolled out. This does include just like general metadata updates, so it's not totally specific to linked open data, but since they are closely related, I think it would probably be helpful to review that entire page if you're interested in learning more. So a sneak preview of this BibFrame form editor. I've seen it referred to as the linked open data editor as well as the BibFrame form editor. So we are talking about the same thing there, same concept, this form-based editor for cataloging natively in BibFrame. It is still in development. We are giving out early access starting in November. The last I heard, we had about 25 or 30 libraries that had opted in for the early access. So they will get that probably in the next week here, and then plan for general release to all Alma customers who want to turn it on in February 2026. So it's coming up pretty soon. We have a link data focus group that has been testing this. Our product managers are refining and changing the workflows constantly. So even what you see today, it is probably going to change by the time we get to February, unless you're unless you're at an institution that's part of the early access group. This is just a little screenshot to remind me to pull up what I had to show you here, but you can kind of see already that it looks like our other screens in Alma. It is built into Alma. It doesn't look like the metadata editor though. Even though we are using this to catalog in BibFrame, it's more of a form-based editor, so it might remind you more of something like a PO line or like the item editor page. But we have the ability to save records, save templates, which is super helpful. You can create templates for BibFrame too, and use those for frequently cataloged materials. So let me just switch over now. We're going to look at a walkthrough that, and actually I'm going to turn off the audio here because I can talk you through this. So this was a quick demo that one of our product managers gave at Igloo, and you can see that she is already logged into Alma. We're doing the work search here. So this is actually already live. This is something you can do today, searching for a work just in the drop down. And then we're able to see the work itself, see the author. So again, these are things you should be able to look at today if you're interested. This is kind of the top level of the BibFrame hierarchy, having that Pride and Prejudice as the work, and then the work record. So this is the XML RDF structure. Now we do have a tree view coming, which will be easier for humans to read. When I look at this, I have a hard time parsing it, I'll be honest. So we're hoping that the tree view will make it easier for folks to read it, and then we will have the option to like switch back and forth. So if you want to see this XML, you can see this XML. If you want to see the tree, that'll be a little more readable. We're going to have that. But right now we just have the XML, so that's what she's showing you. We can click over to see the MARC record. Even though this was not cataloged in MARC, the system has created the MARC record, kind of similar to what we were doing the other way around, where you could create a MARC record and Alma could convert it to BibFrame. We are converting the BibFrame records to MARC, again, to support that learning process that we know is going on right now, and that transition to BibFrame, or maybe it will never fully transition. I think it's too soon to tell for sure. So we are maintaining them together, the MARC and the BibFrame. Just showing like the subjects and the instances in this record too. So if you want to learn more about BibFrame, it's maybe good to start reading about the structure of it if you aren't already sure. I just backtracked a little bit so you can see what the different instances are. Of course, we have the work, which is Pride and Prejudice. Then we have two instances here. There's a second edition, there's a revised edition, and you might even have more than two instances, but this one just has one work with two instances. So that's what she's showing here. And now she can click to edit the work. And this is where we're able to see the editor. and pointing out a few other things you can do, just viewing it, things like that. So when we go to edit the record, this is what's kind of this new, what's coming new, this linked open data editor. Um, we have the little eye icons for further direction. In this case, you can link to the Library of Congress documentation about this, just for like help or support. There is an asterisk next to some of these fields, like the main title. That is a mandatory field. As you might imagine, there are a few fields that really are mandatory in order to save a record, like the title. So we do have the asterisk, but other than that, a lot of these fields are going to be optional based on your cataloging standards. This is the associated agent. That's the concept I was trying to think about before. And it's a lookup tool, again, similar to F3 in the metadata editor. We can look up this author, Jane Austen, and link to the appropriate authority here. Currently, that was searching LC names, but you are able to search other vocabularies from the dropdown. So if you are searching other types of external resources that you have configured in your environment, you're not limited to LC names, for example. And again, we're seeing the XML version of it. She is creating a new record now, just a brand new instead of editing the existing. It's from the resources menu. You can create a BibFrame record. Again, once this goes live in general availability, you'll be able to create from a template or a blank record. And as I mentioned, those templates could be really helpful. You're seeing some examples of what they've set up, monographs, basic work, things like that. Again, something to think about in the couple months we have what templates might be useful. And then we've got the title she's going to put in because that is mandatory. This form was generated, by the way, from the template that she selected. So we've, similar to templates in the metadata editor today, we now see which fields need to be completed for this record. She's adding a part number, and that again, refer to the documentation for what exactly these fields are. But here's the associated agent again. So a lot of times this is the author, and you can use the lookup tool, again, searching with LC names or other vocabularies that you may have configured in your institution. This external resource there is, you can change that dropdown if you want to search for something else. And we can also add things like a genre form or language information. All of these things will make your record more rich for folks who are trying to find this information. I thought this was kind of cool to be able to specify like what kind of resource it is. Is it a screen print? Is it a woodcut? And using the LCGFT vocabulary for that. But when you see the dropdown, there's other things, even including Wikidata, that this lookup tool could be using. So creating a new record, it's really meant to be quite easy and intuitive. I think when I look at this, probably the biggest thing is just like educating ourselves on what the best practices are for cataloging in BibFrame and what do some of these fields mean if we're unfamiliar with them. Um, so those are, maybe some homework in the next couple months if you're interested in working with this. But the form editor is basically ready to go, ready to deploy for early adopters in the next week or two. And we're pretty excited about that. So let's wrap up with some challenges. A lot of cool things coming, but we do have other, things in the back of our head that are kind of our product managers are thinking about. One of those is sustainability, right? How do we make sure that what we develop is interoperable? Because if you think back to one of the key benefits of linked data is that it should be shareable and accessible by the community. So how do we make sure that that really is happening? How do we make sure that the services we're using are stable? Like if we're linking to other vocabularies, um, how stable are they? How likely are they to exist long term? So these are all kind of things that we're thinking about. In terms of practicality, of course, adapting it to Alma. The Sinopia integration was the first step, and we thought that was a good step. We thought that that might be enough, but then people said, "Oh no, we really want to catalog natively in Alma." So now we're going to have our linked open uh, data edit form editor. But what other things might we have to adapt or change in Alma and Primo? Just thinking about that. Um, is this usable for librarians who aren't catalogers? Does it need to be? Those kind of questions. How can we work with AI to enhance these records? That sort of thing. Again, this hybridity of the Mark 21 standard with BibFrame. Uh, I I've heard at least a decade, and that seems to be the consistent thought, is that these two are going to be kind of be here in tandem for quite a while. So how do we make sure that we support that in our solutions? And how do we crosswalk the data between the two standards while not making it overly technical or difficult for people to use? And finally, there's some things that we haven't even anticipated yet. So that's where the community comes in and our focus groups and our early adopters. Product management really appreciates working with folks. They really want to hear from you because that's how they learn what folks need and, what are the challenges, what could be some of the great solutions. And so we, anticipate that this is going to be very much a community-driven endeavor. We need that like real world library experience to help us develop Alma for you guys. So that is my last slide. Thank you very much for coming to listen to info about linked data. Hopefully it was interesting and not overly technical. I really want to encourage you to look into this more and to learn about it, even though, like I said, Mark 21 we think is going to be around at least another decade. If it's something that's interesting to you, it's never too early to start learning about BibFrame. And coming in February, all Alma customers should be able to enable that form editor if you want to start playing around and testing, cataloging in that format. So I think we have a couple minutes. We could take questions if there are any. Is that okay, Kathy, if we do that?
Great.
Okay. I'm
Yeah, go
gonna
ahead and put your questions in the chat. Would probably be the best thing right now.
and it's okay if there aren't any as well. Maybe we could give you a couple minutes back since I know Matt gave you a lot of info beforehand about support, but um, oh, okay. Josh has a good question about where to start learning BibFrame. That is actually, let me stop sharing here. So we have one, let me see if I can pull this up for you guys. First of all, it is not, of course, a proprietary standard to us or anything. So there's a lot of information just kind of on the World Wide Web. But another thing I wanted to point out that I did not share when I was presenting is this, if you want to learn about the editor specifically, this one is still in like a kind of behind a development wall for us, so it's not publicly available. But since we're about to release this for our early adopters. I think they're going to publish it like publicly very soon, but it's about navigating that form editor. So I think this could be helpful for learning about like how to create those templates, learning about the different fields that are available. So of course we will have documentation as well for Alma in terms of how you would use that specifically. Oh, there's a couple of questions coming in. Thank you guys. Okay, there's also a question about the JSON serialization. Is it only available via API, or are there plans to make it available through the viewer? That is a good question, Brock. I will ask our product manager about that. And I'm going to make a note here for myself. I'll get that answer and circle back with Kathy. Would that work, Kathy?
Do that, and then I can share it with Brock.
Okay, thank you. Uh, the early adopters question, they're wondering if there's any consortium customers involved or if it's only standalone instances. I believe we do have at least one consortium, but I will also check that with our product manager. Is anybody here involved with that? I'm curious if anybody wants to mention if they know if their institution is involved in that. And thank you for the folks who put some learning links in the chat about good guides for learning about linked data. Okay, so I have two questions I will take back to our product manager and we'll circle back. Um, And yeah, if anybody knows if they're an early adopter and cares to volunteer that info, I think people would be curious how it goes for you in November and December and January, and what hopefully it will be a very cool, very fun experience. But everybody is eagerly awaiting being able to do that, try it for themselves in February, I think. Okay, question about AI's potential to get libraries linked data on the web. And what are our thoughts on that? Yeah, that is kind of an emerging opportunity, I think. You see, for example, with like if you've used our AI metadata assistant, um, it's able to generate quite a few fields, including subject headings. We have one for digital as well, that's coming with Specto that is optimized for digital materials like images and documents. And I think that will be very powerful and helpful for describing some of these things that aren't currently described. Um, in terms of specifically like the bibframe form editor or things like the URIs, I think that's still something that our product managers are thinking about and working on. Uh, I think we're in early days there, but there definitely is a lot of potential, at least to suggest these things for our staff and our catalogers. So far, the approach we've been taking is having AI generate fields, but only making them part of the record and accepted once the cataloger actually approves and saves the record. So we still want to have that human in the loop, and I would expect that will continue with whatever we're able to develop through AI.
Looks like you answered all of the questions in the chat. Do we have any final questions for the last couple of minutes? Doesn't look like that. Lauren, thank you so much for your presentation. Your presentation and the chat will be available, so we'll have those questions and then your responses to that when we post the recording. So everything will be available to those that missed this recording.
Okay,
Thank you very
wonderful.
much.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good rest of your day, or maybe I will see you on the next session I'm doing on AI. All right. Bye.